Hey, hello. You've got me for this episode. I hope that's okay. And the reason you've got me, as I navigate this roundabout, is because this is another update on my Suzuki Jimny. And actually, this is going to be the Jimny's final update because I am selling the Jimny. And it's been a really tough decision, but it is the right decision. And it's purely logistics. I have got 2 big kids and they have lots of school bags and PE bags and hockey sticks and various other things, and I simply need more boot space. You know, she's brilliant and she's lovely and I love driving her and I love being in her, but Jessica is just not practical. I need a more practical boot, and there's part of me or us, because we are a multi-car family, that goes, okay, well, why don't you just keep her and get another car? But I've already got a second car. I've already got the Figaro, which I do need to do another update on as well. So I've got the Figaro as a second car, and Johnny's got a lot of cars, and I just think that I can't see myself being more than a 2-car person, which sounds weird anyway. A lot of people aren't even that. I'm going to sell her and give her to somebody that will really want her and will cherish her, and who quite clearly doesn't need as much boot space as me. And then I have got to find a new car. I've got to decide what new car to get, whilst trying my best to avoid big clunky SUVs, or I'll engage the wrath of a certain car pervert. So I've got to get her ready for sale, and to do that I'm driving her to Nuovo Detailing, to Aaron, who was in our last video. Johnny took Jessica to Nuovo Detailing to be ceramic coated and to be fully detailed, and we also put new wheels on it. If you haven't watched that video, there will be a link somewhere on the page apparently. And yeah, I've got to go and get her ready for sale. So Aaron is going to help me to get all the little dents and nooks treated and taken out, so that she's kind of as good as brand new as possible. And he's going to really clean her up for me and get her absolutely sparkling, so that we can record a really good auction video for Car and Classic, and then yeah, basically get her set for sale. God, I have no idea where I'm going. Hi Aaron.
Hi.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good, welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having the gym.
No problem at all, my pleasure as always.
Okay, so I really need your help to get Jessica, as I call her, ready for sale. So there's a couple of bits that have happened that are going to irritate Johnny most of all before we sell it. Okay. But equally, you know what I mean, we want to sell it, we want to do right by people, so we just want to get them touched up. So if I want me to walk you around the car?
Yeah, let's have a look. Show
right,
me
let's start at the back. Really random dent.
Okay.
No idea how it happened, really strange height.
Yeah.
But no paint broken, so
No.
I don't quite know.
Well, really, you're never going to know what's happened, but
No.
with something like this here, we can actually do what's called a paintless dent removal.
Yeah.
So what we'll do there is we'll actually use a series of tools
Yeah.
and tricks and secrets to get that
Secret
pulled out,
magic.
and then we'll get that to a nice perfect finish without the need to repaint any areas.
The next bit's on the roof.
Okay.
We had a slight, I had a slight bike incident. It was actually involving Johnny's bike,
Yeah.
and it was strapped to the bike rack, and I went under a kind of like a low, you know, like a hedge that goes over the top of a road.
Okay.
And yeah, it kind of pulled the bike literally off the car.
Okay.
So it didn't go down well.
Let's have a look.
So if we climb up, it's basically, it's sort of there. There you go.
Okay,
Can you
I
sort of
see it.
see it there?
Yeah,
So it's
I can
where
see
the
that.
pedal's gone in,
Okay.
and God,
So
the
you've
car's
got a little bit of a
dirty,
dent there.
Yeah.
and there is some damage to the paint. But that isn't too bad. What we can do with this, you see, we can do a similar technique to the paintless dent removal to remove the dent.
Yeah.
And what we can do is a bit of a touch-up here.
Right.
So, as with all sort of cars that you want to prep for sale, you might find things such as stone chips or some small areas where you pick marks up, even on the edges of doors, which you might have.
Yeah, I think you're going to find that, yeah.
But what we can do is we can actually do a touch-up in there, and we'll actually high build that, we'll flat it back, polish it up, remove the dent, and then you won't notice that. That'll be absolutely perfect.
I hope so. I mean, obviously, we're delivering this car to you pretty dirty.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if actually, because I think the damage is a little bit worse than that. So I wonder when you clean it, if you'll find.
We're going to have to get the roof rack off to get it cleaned properly.
Are you?
So
right,
we can get in there, get full access to it, and have a proper look once all of that's done.
Okay. Third bit.
Okay.
Is round the front. And it's not huge, but it's a really irritating one, I think. It's that, which is, I think, just a nasty stone chip.
Yeah, that's definitely the worst bit of damage of the three. You can see that it has broke the paint there fully, and there is a bit of surface rust coming through. So really, we want to send that to the body shop and have that done properly. Just because of the rust that's coming through, you don't want any future problems if you just put a bit of a touch-up over that. And obviously, you want it to look perfect. I think, unfortunately, with that one, to get it perfect, we're going to go to the body shop with that and get that sorted out.
Perfect. And it's a bit of a strange one because none of these are that bad, really. But equally, you know, it's about, obviously, everyone's going to sell the car in their own way, and you've got to be happy with how you're selling it. And obviously, if you've watched the previous video, you'll see how Aaron's fully detailed and protected this car from before. So obviously, that's going to help a lot with any kind of wear and tear damage anyway.
Definitely. The base is there, so as part of the cleanup process for the car, that's going to be fairly straightforward to get it back to looking how it was before at the end of the last video.
Let's get her in and let's have a go.
So now we've got the car in the workshop, we've had a bit of a walk around, we've got the 3 focus points to work on, such as the dent on the back, the scratch on the roof, and the stone chip on the A-pillar that needs to go to the body shop. So as you can see, it's pretty dirty now. It's not too much of a concern because, as I'm sure you're aware, we've already detailed this vehicle. It's been ceramic coated. We can put a link to that previous video up above. And we've got to get into washing it now and get this prepped so we can get it ready for sale. Okay, that was fun. So now the car's back in the workshop. We've given it a really thorough clean. We've decontaminated all the wheels, decontaminated all the paintwork. There's nothing too much of concern around the car. Like we said before, it has been detailed, it has been fully ceramic coated, so there wasn't really going to be too much of concern. There's a couple of little things that we've noticed, small scratches here or there. There are some dents around the scratch that was on the roof that is going to need a little bit more attention than we first thought from the paintless dent removal side of things. But the next step now is we're going to take the car over to the body shop and we're going to get this A-pillar all sorted out. So the whole A-pillar has been painted with the chip that was on there. Because the damage was too deep and there was some surface rust starting to show, this was definitely the best route for this particular area of the car. It just means for a nicer finish. It's absolutely perfect now, as you can see. The colour match is absolutely spot on and there's absolutely no trace of any previous damage that was there. So that was definitely the way to go for this one. We've also, now we've got the car back, gone and done some of the touch-ups on the roof for the mark that was unfortunately left. So that's all been done now as well. And then also at the back end of the car, the dent has been pulled out by Leon from Dragon's Dents. The finish is absolutely flawless. Leon has worked his magic, bit of wizardry. I've given it a machine polish and we've topped up the ceramic coatings on there as well. So yeah, let's get stuck into the last few bits now. All we've really got to do is, as part of the top-up detail, we've got a new product from Carbon Collective called Molecule Light that's going to be released very, very soon. So we're actually going to apply this to the car, and that's basically, it's going to give it a bit of a booster, a bit of a gloss, but it's also going to give a layer of protection that bonds better to the ceramic coating. So it can be used as a standalone product, but it is designed as a top-up product. So we're going to put a layer of that on the Jimny, and then once that's done, the last thing to do really is tidy up the inside of the car, and then once that's all finished, we'll be ready to hand it over to the guys.
Okay, so Chop's dropped off her car with you, and I've followed the process digitally, and I knew what was damaged on it, which was upsetting because my bicycle caused some of the damage, being torn off the roof. And obviously the whole point of this is to work out the things you want to do that should maximise your possibility, the value of selling your car. But also there's some stuff as well that even if you were keeping your car, it's kind of handy to do or to know. This is the bit where we get to pull off the cloth, right?
It is.
Like the ones you always see at the motor shows where you pull the cloth back, although I'm a little bit nervous because it's very lumpy and bumpy.
Luckily, we're both quite tall.
Yeah, God, that's nice. Oh, yeah, don't get hitched on the spots. Or the expedition case. My gosh. How has he done that?
So I'll talk you through exactly how he's done it. So he's actually got access from inside. There was a grommet from factory inside.
Yeah.
And he's got this C-bar like this, and he's actually got his tool in there, and he's pushed the dent from behind.
So he's got
to get it level.
He got a profile that fitted this profile.
Exactly right, yeah.
And just tapped it.
And then pushed it with a bit of oomph
Right.
to get that level. And then using his wizardry, he's levelled that off perfectly. So it is, you'd never know there was any damage there.
That's when a car like the Suzuki, which doesn't have a great deal of interior trim panels, is probably helpful. If it's got tons of trim panels to remove, and
it would have been a bit more tricky, that's for sure.
Gosh, that is really good. I actually can't quite remember where it was. I'd have to go back to our photos. I'm pleased about that because that irritated the hell out of me. It really irritated me.
It was good.
So that is wonderful.
Should
Brilliant.
we take a look at the A-pillar?
Yes, of course, yeah, the dreaded A-pillar.
So, massive stone chip originally.
Yeah.
Some surface rust starting to appear in there.
Yeah.
Just gone a bit too far. So that has all been fully repainted.
That's brilliant.
So it's all been sanded back, prepped properly, primed properly, painted properly.
So that's...
And we've also polished it up and ceramic coated it with the original coatings that we put on and with the new top-up light coating as well.
Brilliant. So that matches the rest of it.
Everything's as coated as the rest.
Makes it so much easier to clean. And I've said this before, and obviously all of the main detail of the original detail is in the previous video, which I'll put a link above our heads for if you haven't seen that. But I've found it makes a car so much easier to look after and keep on top of in winter. When a car like this, where we live, it's impossible to keep it clean. It just makes it, you could go out there and just blast it. You don't have to actually agitate much at all.
No, that's exactly what they're designed to do. It gives you that added barrier, makes it easier to clean, easier to maintain, and gives you a bit of a barrier against like light damage, like swells and scratches and things like that, obviously within reason. But yeah, it's a really, really good way to protect your car. And if you're spending a lot of money on a vehicle, you're protecting your investment at the end of the day, because come the end of it, like now, it's less work to get it up to such a high standard like this.
That's exactly it.
Therefore, you're going to get top money for it.
Yeah, and that's the point of the video. You want to try and maximise the value that you get out of your car when you come to sell it. And I'll explain a couple of things to do as well when you come to advertise your car. Because some people clearly have a nice car, they've got no idea how to advertise it, which bamboozles my mind, I don't know. Don't ever photograph a car in portrait mode, please, when you come to sell it. It doesn't work. It's not the right thing to do.
We've done touch-ups on the roof due to the location, and obviously it's underneath the roof rack.
Yeah.
And you had a bit of an accident on there, but realistically speaking, it wasn't too bad.
Wasn't it?
So I think the touch-up really was the right way to go, to lose the scratches that were here, look. So you can see those, you can run your finger over those. They've been flatted back and polished up. It takes your eye off it.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, because again, I'm so irritated when my mountain bike that I've had for 30 years, actually, it was 92 that I bought it. Do you have, I was going to ask you this a while ago, do you get people having cars detailed pre-sale as well as when they've just bought them and they want to protect them?
It's good either end, really.
Yeah.
So if you want to have your car looking right to sell it,
Yeah.
and you know you haven't looked after it to the best of your ability,
Yeah.
then yeah, bring it in. We can look after you.
I've seen you resurrect some cars that looked in a terrible, especially
Yeah,
black,
it's beautiful.
swirly, damaged paint.
But then again, if you've just bought a car, like a lot of people these days with the delays on new cars are buying used cars. So we're seeing a massive influx of used cars coming through, but it's a new car for the owner.
Yeah.
And they want to basically get that looking as best as they can as they've just bought the car, and that's also a really good way of doing it as well. And then, come the end of the term, we can obviously do a top-up like we've done on yours.
Yeah.
And it just keeps on top of things, and whatever you decide to do with the car, we can keep it looking its best.
Be interesting to see if people hang on to their cars a bit longer.
Yeah.
And like the old days where you probably cherished it a little bit more, cars can take a lot of abuse these days, which is good and a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But seeing some of the stuff being brought back from the brink, I'm always interested in seeing that.
Yeah.
You've polished the wheels, haven't you?
I was waiting for you to notice.
You've repolished them.
So obviously they weren't too bad because of the ceramic coating that was on there. Did a really good job of protecting them.
Yes,
but yeah, we have, me being me, bit OCD, we've gone in there again, just fully polished them, and I've actually recoated them for you as well.
That's great.
It's just what
Thank
we do.
you. Yeah, because I put them on at the start of winter, didn't I? Which is a no-no for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
I thought, what the hell? That's brilliant. Oh, they look ace. This is the problem with this is now the car looks amazing. Just at the time you're about to sell it, you've got to get rid. I don't really want to get rid of it, but it isn't my call because it's not my car ultimately. So that's great. What I'm going to do is, while I've got it in your studio detailing booth, I'm going to take some pictures of it here, because when you advertise a car, pictures sell a car, right? And detail pictures, being honest in the description and in the pictures is key. So I'm probably going to use this environment to take some slick pictures, especially they're quite critical lights for black reflective surfaces. And I'll use those pictures when I advertise it. Because of the amazing amount of technology we've got in our pockets now, there's not really a bad phone around. So there's no excuse for decent pictures of cars, lots of photos, so you can keep a few back. So if people ask for extra specific detail, you've got it. But also do a quick walk around video, and that's what one of the things I'm going to do today, because then at least you can give it to someone as an option. Here's what it's like, POV, walking around this vehicle. When you're taking pictures of a car to put it up for sale, obviously some pictures are going to be slightly different depending on whether it's a classic or whether it's a newer car like this. But what I would say is really pay attention to where you're photographing it. In this instance, I've got this beautiful studio, so I'm going to make the most of it. But if you don't have something like this, find a decent location that's complementary to the car. Not too cluttered, not covered in litter, not by the bins on an industrial estate. Pick somewhere that's good and it works for the car, because so many people don't. And don't photograph it at night with a really horrible flash. That's not a great idea. And don't photograph it in portrait, ever. Ever, ever, ever. The other thing I would say is, before you photograph something like the engine bay, and before someone comes and views a car, just do things like top up the levels. Because if I see a photograph of a car and the brake fluid level's on minimum, I'm thinking they haven't paid much attention to that. So do all of those basic checks. And also don't use that really kind of wet look spray on the engine bay, because I think that rings alarm bells to a lot of people. They think someone's over sanitized the engine bay, what they're trying to hide. Right, I'm going to take a couple of pics. Phones are so good now, especially if you clean the lens. It's really handy, isn't it, Wayne? Wayne's going, yeah. The number of people that don't clean their lens. And the other thing to talk about in an advert, this is when you're writing an advert, is be really comprehensive with what you're saying. Write down all the service intervals. I know it's a bit nerdy, but the more stuff you write down in an advert, the less questions and annoying people you're going to get trying to bother you. Just write it all down. It makes so much sense. If there's any parts that have been replaced recently, itemize them, write them down. You've got to be honest, because if you try and hide something that's really ugly, you're going to get pulled up on it later down the line, and you don't want that. Even if it's sold as seen. For example, you can't really tell in pictures, but there's stuff that I've done to this car, which you might have seen if you watched my first video on the Jimny of me buying it and what I did on it. Before it had even done 1 mile on the road, I wax-awed a couple of key areas on the chassis and things like that. So obviously that's a process I've done to protect it, and I've since gone around and done the inner wings even more, and the bulkhead, just to stop it from getting rusty, or obviously it gets used, it gets kept outside, it gets used all through winter, so it leads a fairly kind of hard life in that respect. Certainly not pampered. And the other thing to do while you're photographing it is to do all the angles and get the car in the frame. Don't crop it. Don't run away 50 metres and take a picture of it like it's a small spec, because it's not helpful. It's not helpful to anybody. And in this instance, if you want to show how straight the panels are once the car's been cleaned, find a backdrop or a time of day when you can see, when you bend down, that those panels are lovely and straight and have been well looked after. Pictures do sell a car, there's no doubt about that. In case you're watching this going, how many times has he taken that Jimny off-road? We've never taken it off-road. My wife wanted to take it off-roading, and I didn't want to because it's the first brand new car I've ever bought and I was too protective over it. Also, when was the car last serviced? Has it had any recalls? This car has had a recall in the last year, and I have taken it and it has been done. It's in the service history. The other thing is the question is, where do you sell your car? That's another crucial thing. I've bought cars in the past cheap because they've been advertised in the wrong place, or they've had some appalling photos taken of them, or the description is so minimal effort that you think, I reckon this, I've got a hunch this is a good car. I don't think a lot of people are going to be interested because it looks terrible. But when you're trying to sell a car, you want to put it in front of the best audience possible, right? So this could either be on an enthusiast group, you could put it on things like, you know, Gumtree or eBay, but it tends to attract a wider audience, perhaps some scammers, that sort of thing. So I'm going down the route of advertising it on Car in Classic, where I know people are really interested in cars. I could either go with a classified ad with a set price, or I go down the auction process, where that whittles down even more kind of potential scammers and time wasters, because you have to register to go into it, and you have to prove that you have the funds to buy it. And I think that's what we're going to do with this car. Please, when you take pictures of the inside of a car, if you haven't got a very steady hand, put it on a tripod or lock it out. Don't take big, like, bleachy white flash shots, because it accentuates all the dirt and it just looks horrible, doesn't it? Like, hard flash photography on black interiors is the worst. And always, always, always wipe any personal data from your infotainment. So, like, for example, your phone numbers and your phone book, if you've imported those, get rid of all of that. Areas that are normally of high wear, if your car's been particularly well preserved, celebrate that. Yeah, door panels again. However many doors you've got, take a picture of each door panel, because each one's led a different life perhaps. And if it's an old car, show where maybe it is rusty or where they usually rust and yours hasn't. Under the doors, sills, A-pillars, all those areas, just reveal them. Clean them first though, yeah? The other thing is, and I know this is an obvious thing to say, if you're thinking of selling your car and you go to the effort of kind of preserving it or prepping it for sale, tell your friends, or even put a subtle ad card in the window. I've sold cars before from outside my own house. If you're going to sell parts with the car, if you've got an old car, you're selling spares, or like this, I'm selling the original wheels and tyres with the car and the original rear light clusters, stuff like that. Photograph those, make sure you mention those, because again, lots of added value, justifying why you're asking what you're asking price-wise. You get the picture, don't you? Don't have to follow me doing every single one, but I'm going to spend a while doing this because you've spent a while prepping the car, making sure it's clean. This is the moment you want to capture all of that on camera to look as glitzy as possible. This is its catwalk moment.
So when it comes to selling your car formally, you can choose numerous methods, as I've said before. Mainstream cars have a wider appeal, but if you have a classic or a niche vehicle, then home in on the perfect prey to bait enthusiasts with. For Chops' Jimny, I decided in the end to use Car and Classic because it casts the net wide and it has a large European interest as well. One of their classifieds is actually free of charge, but we wanted to make sure the spotlight was pushed a little bit harder onto the sale, and therefore I wanted to go with an online auction approach. It also reduces the time waster element, I think, because people have to register. I personally can't be bothered with physical auctions because you have to take the car somewhere cross country and faff around with all of that, and that wasn't right for us in this instance as the car is still in use. The online auction allows us to sell from where the car is, and Car and Classic holds the funds as a third party to ensure everyone is happy before the car is collected. I know people who have used this method with success on far more valuable cars than ours. This is a pre-live auction page that you're looking at, which was assembled by Car and Classic. By the time you watch this video, the auction will have gone live. I fed these details to the auction consignment team and tried to help them paint a picture of the car and its condition and its modifications. Speaking of which, when advertising a car, please don't waste paragraphs explaining the manufacturer or the model's precise history. They've got books and websites for that. Touch on it by all means, but this is about your individual example. I wanted to ensure we got some attention from the headlines, so I mention immediately that it's the UK's first Jimny sold. Photography is key, as I've mentioned already, and we use a combination of the detailing bay images here and maybe some of it out in the wild enjoying the snow in the fields, and maybe of one of it when it arrives still shrink wrapped from the boat, and a couple prior to having the different wheels and tyres fitted. The spec of the car is listed, with a few more details on those, but then we get stuck into what add-ons have been put on the car, and I stipulate that the modifications are reversible and any extras that come included in the sale, like base model grille, like the original rear light clusters and the original wheels and tyres. I'm trying to be honest about it not being garaged, but I'm countering that with mentions of the comprehensive anti-corrosion treatments. Besides the obvious MOT expiry date, I tried to lay out the service dates and mileages so buyers can easily see when the car was cared for and who did it. I'm not going to pretend that being owned by us, the Smiths, from the Late Break Show will mean this car is worth more, but some people do value provenance and a car's appearance in, say, TV or film. The Jimny's obviously been seen in videos for this channel, which some interested parties will like, and some will also be able to visit the other videos it's been in to get more info on the Jimny. Always try to space out the text in an advert in digestible chunks, and do spell check. Suzuki Jimnys aren't a thing. If you want to be honest with what may need doing to the vehicle, by all means do it. People admire honesty. Make a video walk around POV if you want. It really can't harm. And finally, price your car realistically. By all means, seek advice from auctioneers and experts and clubs, but in our case, I knew the market is strangely buoyant at the moment, and I wanted to have a reserve on the auction because I'm not a gambling man, and I also know the value of the extra parts that we've put onto the car. Now it's just a case of sitting, waiting, and seeing if there's a buyer out there.
So this is it. The Jimny is going to be for sale. In fact, by the time you're watching this, the auction will probably be live, and I will put a link in the description for that below. And hopefully some of the information we showed you in this video is not just relevant for if you're trying to sell a car, but if you're trying to preserve a car and just generally keep on top of it and improve some of its value. And I'm so impressed with some of those dent removal techniques. That's spooky, the way they do stuff like that. What car is Chops going to get next? We have no idea. She's thinking about it right now. If you have a suggestion, by all means, let's get clickbaity and stick them in the comments. Thanks for watching this episode. If you haven't already subscribed to The Late Break Show, click subscribe, click the bell icon for when we put a video out. Typically, we do 2 a week. And if you want to become a Patreon, by all means, support us through Patreon. Again, I will put a link in the description.